Anyhow, New Year. And I want to look at your bucket list. I want to see if you guys have a bucket list. Jeremiah, you got a bucket list? Jeremiah's looking at me like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. And by the way, in my sermon prep class, someone wisely told me, Tom, not everybody understands what a bucket list is. So, okay, yeah, it's true. They may not. They may not have watched the movie that had Morgan Freeman, Jack Nicholson in it, and they both found themselves in a hospital room, and they both were diagnosed with a fatal illness. They're going to die soon. And so, anyhow, I don't know which one it was that came up with it. I believe it was Jack Nicholson. He says, you know, they've got this thing called a bucket list. And the definition of bucket list is, next slide, a list of experiences or activities that I need to do before I die. Okay, now I'm aware of my mortality. Now I am aware that I'm going to croak soon. What would I do? If you knew you were only going to live the next 3 months, what would you do? And so, they came up with this bucket list. We're going to go skydiving. We're going to ride bulls. You know, we're going to do all this other stuff. Drive a real fast car and all this kind of stuff, right? Before we croak. Things that we haven't done yet. Things that we have not accomplished before. But the fact is, time's running out, and so I got to get these things in before I kick the bucket. And let's see how much life I can cram into those 3 months before I kick the bucket. We'll take whatever risks they're taking. Who cares if I bungee jump? Who cares if the thing breaks? I'm going to croak anyhow. So you get the kind of mentality, right? This bucket list. Going to die anyhow. So I want to challenge us all this right here, right now. Skip the idea of New Year's resolutions. Forget them. Throw them out. Most people's New Year's resolutions are failed within like a couple of weeks, right? Let's put it in a whole different picture frame. And let's call it our bucket list for 2011. What would you do different? What risks would you take? What priorities would you put on life if you knew this is all I had is 2011? What would you do this year? The amazing thing is that as we look at this idea, this concept of a bucket list, is that every single one of us have a fatal disease. Every single one of us is ultimately going to leave this world in one way, shape, or another. The only difference between us and Morgan Freeman is they kind of got a date. Come to find out later, the date wasn't right, was it? No one knows the date. God knows the date. So I want to look at it, having a bucket list. And a Bible passage came to mind, Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 through 17. And if you have a Bible with you and you want to go to that, go ahead and go to Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 through 17. And there it says, be careful. You know, be careful how you live. Be careful how you live. How does it go? Somebody help me out. You reading in there anywhere? And be careful how you live.
Not as
wise, but as wise. Making the most of what? Every opportunity. How come? Because the days are what? The days are evil. Oh. What's the next line? Be careful. Not to be foolish, but to understand what the Lord's will is. Now, this is an awesome passage because if you look at chapter 5 that all came before it, and you look at the top of your Bible, a lot of your new translations have a major heading, and it says, live as children of light. Live as children of light. And then it goes on and talks about the various kinds of behaviors that we ought to have as people who are of light. not darkness. And then it goes on and says that we need to think about how we live. That we need to not be unwise, but to live wise. That we make the most of every single opportunity we have. Why? Because the days are evil. Don't be foolish. Don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Now, I got to tell you, most, if not almost all the time, I hear people who talk about a bucket list, or people who are really having a bucket list. You go back to Morgan Freeman, you go back to Jack Nicholson, and they had their bucket list, and especially this Jack Nicholson guy. What is it that he wanted to do? He wanted to cram more life experiences in, things that he would enjoy, things that would satisfy him. I want to look at that as representing that which is carnal, that which is selfish, and it's all about my pleasure and about what I get, me, 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 me. But if you watch the movie and you see Morgan Freeman, he has some different things that he wants to get done before he leaves this world. Things like make somebody laugh until they cry. You know, maybe reconcile this man with his daughter. See, so I'm going to classify Morgan Freeman as he's more spiritually minded. Maybe it is that he's more seeking what the Lord's will is instead of me selfishly, carnally trying to cram in more stuff for me. And so let's look at the bucket list, because we're all, every single one of us, you realize how many hours is in 1 year? 8,760 hours in 1 year. That's not a whole lot. It's not a whole lot. All right? And so, and by the way, 36 of them about have gone by already. How are we using them? Well, what are we doing with them? And so, make your bucket list. But not until after you hear this lesson, okay? Then make your bucket list. And see what it is that you're going to do this year. Would you, if you knew you were only going to live 3 months, would you even sleep at night? Would you go to bed? Would you just try to cram as much of life in as possible? Well, what would you do? Well, let's go back and just pull out some principles from our text here today in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 through 17. All right? Be very careful how you live. Not as unwise, but as wise. Make the most of every opportunity. Make the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. All right, I'm going to say something very profound, and I want to make sure you're all awake and you don't miss this one point. And it'll come up on the next slide, and that is, folks, our time on earth is limited. I studied all week to get that point. Our time on earth is limited. And I know there are some of you out there saying, well, that's really profound, Tom. You know, you have just stated the very, very obvious. Don't people who state the obvious annoy you? Sometimes, right? That it's kind of annoying. And you think that's really simple. But it is not that simple. And I think I stand in good company, because the Apostle Paul is writing basically the same thing, is that you need to be very careful how you live, because time on earth, your time, my time, is limited. And we know that, but we don't live like it. We live like, yeah, other people's time is limited, but I think I'm just going to live forever. We live in a constant state of denial, thinking that we're going to live forever, and we continually defer things that we should be doing, because we think we'll get another time, another opportunity, another chance to do that, which we should be doing. And we're so easily deceived and led off onto a path to continue to do things that we either shouldn't be doing, or it's a total waste of time. And we're missing our opportunities. So even though by saying that, you're Mr. Obvious here, but the fact of the matter is, we often struggle and live like we think we're going to live forever. And we defer what we would do if we knew that our time was limited.